Are there other amendments? Mr. Gingrey.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk. I think it's amendment number 27.
Mr. Chairman, I reserve a point of order.
The Gingrey amendment will be considered as read. The chair notes a reservation of a point of order, and the gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This amendment, quite simply, is a postponing amendment, postponing the effective date of this act and its amendments until the Secretary of Health and Human Services certifies that foreign facility drug inspection requirements are met. Mr. Chairman, the mission of the FDA is to promote and protect the public health. By piling onto the FDA's plate the regulation of tobacco and tobacco products, a role for which the FDA certainly is not yet prepared, this Congress will actually weaken the overall effectiveness of the FDA and compromise consumer protections that safeguard our families, our children, and our country. The FDA is a public health agency structured to regulate the development of products that are either intended for healing or for nourishment. Yet we have seen the FDA flounder with their charge to protect the health of consumers in this nation. Products that should be safe, as an example, infant formula or candy bars or indeed peanut butter, have proven deadly because of breakdowns in oversight. In light of these recent failures, I'm very concerned, Mr. Chairman, at the potential for further regulatory blunders that may endanger the lives of Americans. As public servants, it should be our duty to ensure that the FDA is able to fulfill its current charge before adding a new responsibility for a product wholly different than the other products that it regulates. In this country, a drug is not considered unapproved or adulterated if it comes from a plant that the FDA has never inspected. So my amendment before you today supports this important change, as I say, a postponing amendment. And let me give a couple of statistics, Mr. Chairman. The GAO estimated that FDA inspected only 8% of foreign drug establishments in 2007. Of the approximately 3,249 foreign drug establishments, FDA inspected only 332 of them. As our committee's hearings on the heparin death showed us, FDA must focus more attention and more resources on inspecting foreign drug establishment, and it spells out on page 143 of the bill that we are actually able to take money from the primary mission of FDA to take on this new charge. What does the chairman's bill do? It forces the FDA to use resources on building a new tobacco center instead of using the resources, as I say, to secure the safety of our nation's drugs. This amendment will stop the FDA from using resources to regulate tobacco until the Secretary of HHS certifies the FDA has inspected every foreign drug establishment within the previous 2 years. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will encourage my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support the amendment. I yield back my time.
Mr. Chairman, I withdraw my reservation.
Mr. Pallone.
Well, I'm sort of repeating myself here. This bill, Mr. Waxman's bill, is self-funded. The resources are there to deal with the tobacco issue. I think that the gentleman, of course, is mixing the other issue with regard to food and drug inspection, which is addressed in the FDA Globalization Act that's sponsored by Mr. Dingell, Mr. Stupak, and myself. I would ask him, if he's concerned about that, sign on to our bill. We intend to move the bill fairly quickly. It again would fund the foreign drug facilities inspection that you're looking to that you're concerned about here, and I just don't think it makes sense to mix the two. We know the problems with the FDA. We know a lot of it has to do with resources. We're trying to address it on both fronts, but don't bring it up today and I know it's not your intention, but the practical consequence may be to scuttle this bill, and I think it's a mistake at this time, so I'd oppose the amendment.
The gentleman,
I yield to the gentleman from Michigan.
I just think it's worth repeating all these ills that you bring up with the Waxman bill. really could be resolved if you just join us in the global food and drug bill that we have pending before this Congress. Come join, co-sponsor it. We can resolve this. We've been working on this legislation for a couple of years. We finally have a president who's willing to put the resources into the FDA, but you can't continue to give resources to a agency that is really broken because of lack of leadership we've seen for the last few years. You mentioned heparin. Heparin, and we did that investigation. The problem there was the institutional review boards, which we're going to be having hearings on because there are serious breakdowns there. So there's a number of problems there. We're proposing legislation to address the ills that you bring up. We ask you to join us in co-sponsoring that legislation so we can move forward. But these excuses, and that's really what these amendments are, excuses to delay the Waxman legislation, are nothing more than excuses. And if we're serious about reforming the FDA to have them do their job, then join us. We'll do it. Let's move this legislation. And then let's together strengthen and improve our FDA. There are many good, dedicated employees in the FDA, but it's been rudderless for the last few years because of lack of leadership.
Gentleman yields back his time. Further discussion? If not, let's proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the Gingrey amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The amendment is not, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.